Y'all ever seen that meme of a guy talking to God and he says, "God, stop giving me your toughest battles"? And God responds by saying, "How are you still alive?" Well, that's how it feels to be a Miami sports fan. Like, that's how devastating it is, like 99% of the time. It's truly disheartening. Now, I guess it's not all bad. I should put some perspective on things. Not everything is so terrible right now in South Florida, because at least we still got the Miami Hurricanes. That's actually why I'm back home over here in Davie, in the childhood home. It's because I'm going to the Hurricanes game tomorrow versus UF, which, by the way, right now on FanDuel, which is the sponsor of today's video, you can actually get the Hurricanes money line at -295, which I think is pretty good odds. Florida kind of sucks, so I'm definitely going to throw a little bit of bread on Miami's money line. I see the spread right now is Canes -7.5. I'm not sure I love that, just because it's 2 scores and you always got to worry about the back door there. But I'm going to keep an eye on FanDuel. If that does drop down to 6.5, I might throw a little more money on Canes with the spread. But anyways, I'm in Fort Myers. I'm at work. I'm ready to drive all the way back over here to Davie, and I'm looking for a podcast to put on while I'm on the road. And I check Apple Pod, and I see that 5 Reasons put up a new episode titled "Tyler Herro Out to Start the Season." And I'm thinking, what? What the hell happened to Tyler Herro? I didn't see anything. I didn't get no notification. I was at work all morning. So of course I checked Twitter, and immediately I'm confused because I see out of nowhere Tyler Herro is getting surgery, some kind of surgery. We don't exactly know what. There was a lot of confusion early on. So as I was driving home, I was hoping we would learn some more information once the surgery was finished, and it didn't happen during my drive. But as of about 20 minutes ago, Herro got out of surgery, and we finally got some confirmation on what the hell happened. So I figured it was a good time to make this video. The reason for all the confusion early on is because there was a lot of speculation on what exactly happened. I mean, Shams put out a tweet saying that Herro was going to undergo left foot surgery, but then followed that tweet by saying he injured his left ankle earlier in the offseason. So I'm thinking, what the hell happened? What the hell is wrong with him? Because we know Herro has had a lot of ankle injuries throughout his career. I remember a few years ago, it was in Memphis. He landed on someone's foot and missed like over a month with a sprained ankle. And of course, he's missed a lot of other time throughout his career with the ankle. But there was also a few years ago where he missed a lot of time with some mysterious foot injury. If you remember, it was back in New Orleans. He took a weird fall. He kind of like hyperextended his knee and then missed a bunch of time. So we were all thinking it was a foot injury, but then the Heat revealed that it was some random, or we were all thinking it was a knee injury, and then the Heat revealed that it was some random foot injury this whole time. Now, 5 Reasons did note that that foot injury was the right foot, and this one that he just had surgery on was the left foot, so they're probably not related, but it's still another random, mysterious surgery nonetheless, that we don't know exactly when it's from. I saw Drew Starr tweeted that it was probably from when Tyler Herro was paintballing with that bum Aiden Ross. I don't like that. I think that's BS, and I'm certainly not going to sit here and speculate on the cause of the injury because we have no idea. You know, I'm not going to sit here and blame Tyler Herro for getting hurt because it's not his fault. You know, it's not like he's trying out there to get injured. I do think that he, in general, busts his ass to stay pretty healthy. But the information that we can go based off on is the reliable reporting that Anthony Chang put out, in which he noted that Herro first felt discomfort in his left ankle during a workout earlier this offseason. And then Herro received platelet-rich plasma and cortisone injections in recent weeks in hopes of avoiding surgery, but the discomfort never subsided and surgery was deemed necessary. I did see some other reports that maybe this happened in a late July workout, so the Heat were probably trying really hard over the last month and a half to do all these sort of treatments to avoid surgery, and they ended up deciding that that wasn't possible. So while, of course, in hindsight, I wish that he would have just got the surgery a couple months ago so he could be ready for training camp. No, it's just that. It's hindsight. So I'm just going to sit here and I'll be happy that at least he's getting the surgery now, and it's not something that he tried to play through before ultimately getting the surgery, halfway through the season. So at least he's getting it now, and he should be 100%, at some point in November or December. And I'd rather him come back 100% than partially healthy. I just don't think that's the way to go. So we did get an update that Tyler Herro did officially undergo successful surgery, which really the only time someone's reported that a surgery was unsuccessful was like Victor Oladipo, with his quad injury. So 99.9% of the time, unless your name's Victor Oladipo, the surgeries are successful. That's what happened with Tyler Herro, and they were officially calling it posterior impingement syndrome in his left ankle. And he's expected to miss 8 weeks. So that's the official timetable on something that I've never heard about in my entire life. It was to alleviate posterior impingement syndrome in his left ankle. Geez, they're just making up things at this point. Anyways, the more important news there is that he'll be out for 8 weeks. And as Brady Hawk points out, that would put him back for a return, possibly the 14th or 17th, which is a home and home versus the New York Knicks. So he wouldn't miss too many games there. He'd miss about 13 or 14 games, which could put him back in time for November 19th versus the Warriors, which will be very exciting. But anyways, this news kind of sucks, put a damper on my whole day. Certainly, I was kind of sad driving back, the 2-hour drive here all the way from Fort Myers, because I'm thinking, damn, season ain't even start and already we back with the injury BS. And again, I'm not blaming Tyler. He does work hard. I think he works hard, but the reality is some things never change. You think about Tua Tagovailoa, who of course I'm thinking a lot about now after his atrocity he put on national TV yesterday, but he was very injury prone himself, had that injury prone 2022, only played 13 games, but then he bounced back. He played all 17 games in 2023, but then in 2024, he was back to being injured and missed 6 games there. So for Tua, it's looking like that 2023 season was the outlier in terms of health. And the Dolphins still decided to pay him for some reason. I don't know why. They saw him get hurt in 2024 and said, hey, let's give him max money. Clearly, that wasn't the smart move at the time, and it's not the smart move now, 3 games into this season. But anyways, you wonder if the Heat are going to do the same thing in terms of now paying Tyler Herro. Because like Tua was, Tyler is also extension eligible this offseason. The exact date is October 1st. We do know that the Heat were hesitant to pay him prior to the injury because Pat Riley has said many things in terms of his lack of great playoff success and, of course, the injury stuff specifically. Pat Riley literally called him fragile, and that's part of the reason why I've always given Tyler a lot of credit for his relatively healthy previous season. Played 77 games last year and was really well in the regular season. So I give him credit for that, but you got to sustain that. One season of healthy play is not enough to prove you deserve a max contract. It's not enough to prove Pat Riley wrong of calling you fragile. You have to sustain that. And it's looking like Tyler is not going to be able to, at least this upcoming season, just like Tua wasn't able to after his one healthy season. Because now you're already talking about Tyler missing 15 to 20% of the games this upcoming season. So we know there was hesitancy to pay him before. I definitely think there's even more now. So I would venture to say that Tyler Herro probably doesn't get that extension this offseason, or at least a max extension. The Heat probably would have been willing to pay him, but definitely not the max before, and certainly not now. It's just really unfortunate how some guys are more injury prone than others. It just is what it is. I think that's the reality. You'll have a lot of Herro stands say, oh, these are all fluky injuries. He broke his hand in Milwaukee and he's landed on this guy's foot and he has these random foot injuries. Those are all fluky. But it's like, how many fluky injuries can you have before you acknowledge that it's no longer a coincidence? Some guys twist their ankle and they're back in a week. Some guys can dive on the floor for a loose ball and not break their wrist. Some guys don't have these random foot injuries pop up. Tyler Herro does. He has all of those things. And unfortunately, so far throughout his relatively young NBA career, he's been an injury-prone player. And I'm not saying that's going to continue for the rest of his career. He's still a young player with a lot of time to grow on the court and physically. So I hope these injuries can kind of die down a little bit as he progresses throughout his career. But there's no doubt about it. So far, since being drafted in 2019, 2020, he's been an injury-prone player. And now you're talking about him missing the start of this season. It sucks. And I know for him, he feels very bad himself because, he was looking to come into the season after these talks of wanting to get paid, after coming up short in the postseason. I'm sure he was ready to, get off to a hot start this year, show that the all-star year last year was not a fluke. And it's just unfortunate for him that now he has to wait a little bit before he can get back out there on the court. But I do think when he comes back, he'll come back pretty strong. I know he already put on Instagram that he's ready to tear this season apart once he gets healthy. So he's always had the right mindset. I think he does right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing him back on the court in just a couple of months, because I am a fan of Tyler Herro. I really am. As far as the Miami Heat, of course, this does change a lot of things on the court. First off, I want to say I think they'll be okay. They're definitely going to miss Tyler Herro in the offense that he brings, but they do have a lot of other guys that I trust to really hold it down in the backcourt. I did check FanDuel again, because y'all know I've been checking the odds for the Heat to make the playoffs. A couple weeks ago, they were minus 110 to make the postseason. Yesterday, they were minus 106. But after this Tyler Herro injury, they jumped all the way up to plus 126 to make the playoffs. So very clearly, FanDuel values Tyler Herro a lot, and they give him a lot of respect. So I like that. But I still think they're disrespecting the Miami Heat with those plus 126 odds. So I'm definitely going to get in a little bit more on that, because yes, the Heat will miss Tyler Herro, but they got some other guys there. They're going to have a starting backcourt now of Davion Mitchell and Norman Powell, which I like a lot. Prior to this injury, we didn't know which one of those two guys would start next to Tyler. But now, of course, they're both going to start. So you're going to have Norman Powell in the offense that he provides both on and off the ball. I think because he's so versatile in that regard, it's not going to take him a long time to get used to this unit and really mesh with anybody, because he can play with the ball in his hands or kind of spot up in the corner. So I think he'll fit in well pretty quickly. And then, of course, Davion Mitchell, he is elite on the defensive end. Probably, one of the best point of attack defenders in the entire NBA. And I think last season he's shown that he could be serviceable with the ball in his hands. He's always had a very good assist to turnover ratio. So I think he could hold it down in terms of the lead point guard as well, in the short term. And if he could provide, offensive numbers similar to what he did last season, then he will be just fine, for the first month without Tyler Herro. If Davion can shoot even close to what he did last year, they'll be good. So now you got the defense of Davion plus whatever offense he brings. And then, of course, the offensive fire punch that Norman Powell brings. I think in terms of fit, that is a very, very nice backcourt. As far as the guards off the bench, you'll still have Drew Smith, who isn't quite ready to play yet, but I still read he's ahead of schedule and he should be ready for the start of the season. So I do think he'll have a rotation spot off the bench. Of course, you have Pelle Larsson, who was a lock in the rotation, whether Herro was hurt or not. But maybe the Herro injury will allow Pelle to have the ball in his hands a little bit more, which I think is a good thing. We saw him have a lot of success, whether it was in the summer league with the ball in his hands, or even more recently in Eurobasket, where he carried Sweden to a few nice wins, actually. I think Pelle was even the 9th leading scorer in all of Eurobasket. So we've seen him have success with the ball in his hands. Maybe he'll have the chance to do that a little bit more now. And maybe with the Herro injury, maybe there's a slight window that creaked open just a little bit for a couple of minutes for Terry Rozier, which, like most Heat fans, I'm certainly out on Terry. I don't expect a bounce back in any regard, but maybe it's possible. Maybe the Herro injury could be some sort of blessing in disguise, because it opens the door for Terry to get a few minutes, and if he plays well enough, well, then maybe he can convince a contender that he can be their spark plug off the bench. He's on an expiring deal, so that part could be attractive. And maybe some contending team decides to give Miami a second-round pick or two in return for Terry Rozier. So maybe that happens, but I'll admit I'm certainly grasping for straws there. And then outside of Terry, you got Kasparas Giacochonis, but I don't think Kasparas is still going to get any run. I think he'll probably spend a lot of time in the G League where he could really develop. And personally, I'm fine with that. So in terms of the starters, we know we'll have Davion and Norman. You'll have Wiggins at the 3. And then probably the rest of the front court now will be Jovic and Bam. Prior to the Herro injury, I kind of was hoping Bam and Ware would start. And I do think Spo was probably leaning that direction. But now I think he goes Jovic, because you're going to need more of an offensive fire and punch. Jovic provides that with his transition ability and, of course, his catch and shoot ability. And you're still going to need some help handling the ball, because Norman can do it a little bit. Davion can do it a little bit, as we said earlier. But we know Jovic has been really well with the ball in his hands. I do think he can kind of be that secondary playmaker in that starting lineup. And I do prefer that when Jovic plays, he has the ball in his hands. So I think now he might have a chance to do that. And I think in that starting lineup, that's something that Spoelstra will really want to utilize. And now they could use Ware as the backup center, which they never had to begin with. So the rotation kind of balances out a little bit better anyways with Ware coming off the bench. Plus, Ware provides, that interior shot blocking presence, which was very critical when you had a guy like Tyler Herro, who is susceptible to getting blown by a lot. You kind of need Ware there in the paint to block some shots and clean things up a little bit. But now you don't have to worry about that. While Norman Powell is certainly no defensive stalwart, I think he's okay. I think he's serviceable. Then obviously Davion is not getting blown by, in that backcourt. So you don't need Ware's interior shot blocking presence as much in that starting lineup. So for all those reasons, I do think that Nikola Jovic probably ends up getting the start for now. But regardless of what the starting lineup is for the Heat to begin this season, what they need is a strong start from Bam Adebayo. No more waiting until February before you decide to start being aggressive. No more taking 6 or 7 shots a game. You have to come out the gates hot. I know Bam's slow start last season was partly because of all the Jimmy Butler stuff, but now you got no Jimmy Butler. And you have no Tyler Herro either. So I think Bam Adebayo needs to be as aggressive as ever from everywhere. Just take a lot of shots. I know a lot of Heat fans have problems with him taking too many threes, but I'm still okay with that, taking 2 or 3 threes a game. But in addition to that, I want to see him get back to the mid-range, and I want to see him get back to taking advantage of mismatches. If he has a slow-footed center guarding him on the perimeter, take his ass to the rim and dunk on his head. I want to see Bam shoot the ball from everywhere, because I think this Heat team is at its best when Bam is aggressive offensively. And I know that's a lot to ask for, because he's already asked to do a ton defensively. And now if Ware is no longer starting next to him in the starting lineup, giving him some help on the defensive end inside and rebounding, Bam is going to need to do even more defensively. But guess what, Bam? You're a max player. That max extension doesn't officially kick in this season. It'll be the following season where he'll be getting over $50 million. But the point is, he signed that max contract, and max contract players are asked to do a lot. They're asked to carry a huge load on both sides of the ball, and that's what I want to see from Bam Adebayo to start the season, because right now, there's no longer any excuses. Now, if things go bad, if Bam isn't aggressive, or maybe some guys get hurt, at least we know that the Heat have their protected pick this year as a little bit of a safety net. Of course, since the Heat made the playoffs last year, they kept their lottery protected 2026 pick, which, in hindsight, I still wish they would have missed the playoffs, because they probably would have had Cooper flagged the way the ping pong balls fell, but that's in the past. I'll try not to mention that over 20 times this year. But anyways, because they made the playoffs, they have their lottery protected pick this year. So God forbid things go bad, it's not worst case scenario. Maybe another blessing in disguise is that the Heat get off to a slow start, and that's finally the incentive that the front office needs to truly blow things up. Maybe they trade Norman Powell for picks, trade Andrew Wiggins for picks, see what else they can get, and maybe finally start collecting assets, which is something that I think they should have been doing for many years now. But we'll see what happens. Training camp is only a couple of weeks away. I do think the Heat will still be a good team personally, and I think Tyler Herro will probably bounce back pretty strong once he returns. And of course, I'm hoping for the best. But let me know y'all thoughts down below in the comments. I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, because your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll be coming to y'all with Heat content for the rest of the offseason and training camp and preseason. So make sure y'all subscribe so you don't miss it. That being said, I'll see you on the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.